Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be covering just a brief introduction to algebra and the general topics and a general overview of what's to come in the playlists. So before we get into the meat of the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for further content, and let's get right into it. So if I were to ask you guys, what is algebra? Just give me a general definition, or describe it with a few words that comes to mind. Well, the most common responses are equations and expressions, variables, solving, formulas and symbols, and operations, manipulation, and in the entirety, that is right. All right. So let's turn these words into a broad statement. Well, algebra is the branch of math that focuses on the relationship between variables, or symbols for anything. Sorry about that. Move that up for you guys. So algebra focuses on symbols, or variables as we call them, which are symbols for anything, and how they relate and how they relate to one another, and how we manipulate them. And we also focus on how the manipulation, our method of manipulation, affects the relationship between these variables. Well, what do I mean? Well, a good example, this is so I move this up a bit more. The equation 3x squared plus 2 is equal to x, the quantity of x plus 2 squared. Well, we would solve this equation by isolating the variables and applying the quadratic formula and all. We'll get into that. But we have two different expressions related to each other, and how we solve equations, find zeros. If we were to graph this, how would they relate to each other? That's the real question. Or if we were to that's what I'm looking for. If we were to expand this out or simplify it down, how would the relationship change? That's the idea algebra asks. Let me change the page. So, sorry about that. Or another example is in function notation. The function of x is equal to 3x squared. And how does a function f relate to 3x squared? And the two train of thoughts when it comes to algebra, it's solving and simplifying equations and seeing the relationships. Sorry about that. And this, in my opinion, this idea of seeing the relationships between different variables is more important. When it comes to calculus, and when it comes to any other so when it comes to calculus and beyond, and when it comes to physics and chemistry and other sciences that have a heavy emphasis on math, seeing those relationships between different variables and different symbols and different ideas is what algebra is. And without algebra, we would not have we would not have the ideas of science that we have today. And honestly, we probably wouldn't even have calculus or geometry. So algebra is like in my opinion, it's the foundation to the ideas of math. The foundation of the ideas of math, and it's also the foundation to all the groundwork in science, in my opinion. So, moving on. On this channel, I'll be splitting up algebra. So just the general concepts to help you guys get through your guys' classes. There's Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. If you guys want to go more in depth later on, feel free to drop that in the comment section, and I'll go more in depth into the concepts and stuff of how things are derived and where they come from, and more so. Also, some ideas here are also pretty abstract, which are pretty abstract. So a lot of time you guys are going to have to take my word for it, half the time. But I'll eventually show you guys how and where it comes from. But I'm getting off topic. Let's get back onto the idea of the channel. So for the channel, I'll be splitting this into Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, or introduction to algebra and intermediate algebra, if you're in college. So Algebra 1, even though it's pretty lengthy, we'll cover the basic ideas, just the most basic ideas, and split the rest in Algebra 2. So Algebra 1 is the basics, where we'll cover foundations, just the foundation. So I'll build the groundwork of ideas needed for algebra. Then we have expressions and equations, solving them and simplifying. Functions, just introducing you guys to the idea of functions, but and somewhat of graphing. Most of them will be linear. Exponents, power properties and stuff like that, and polynomials and inequalities and radicals. So all of those. So we cover all of this. Oops. So okay. So Algebra 2, we expand upon the ideas of everything in Algebra 2. In Algebra 1, so all Algebra 1, but we also introduce you to complex numbers and quadratics. Sorry about that. We will go over rational functions. So rational equations and functions. We'll go in depth in radicals. Log and exponents. And then we will cover conics, systems, series and sequences as well. So Algebra 2 is the more advanced. Alright, so Algebra 1 will be focusing on basic ideas of a variable relationship, and then we'll cover the basics, and then we'll do problem solving and application examples and with the concepts, of course. But we cover mainly the basics of the relationships and the relationships and the skills that we use to manipulate. And then we also when we move on to Algebra 2, we'll go more in depth with the stuff from Algebra 1 and the complex, and then we'll go in depth with new stuff, which is all listed down here: the complex numbers and quadratics, rational equations and functions, polynomials, radicals, logs and exponents, conics, systems, and series. And I might add more to that as we go. So this video, so that pretty much wraps up the video. Just a quick revision of what we covered. Algebra is the study of the relationship between variables and how we manipulate them.